everyone, welcome to another Random Talk Sunday, and today I thought it would be interesting to briefly address the topic of birthdays, sort of give you a little bit of history as to how we sort of developed this holiday slash celebration, and also sort of my views on birthdays and how I've sort of treated them, I guess you could say, over the years. Um, so basically, birthdays, as far as history is concerned, started out once people had sort of the established calendar. Once civilizations knew that there was a repetition and sort of a cycle, um, therefore creating years, we decided to sort of use that as a means to sort of celebrate things like anniversaries, birthdays being one of them, and things of that nature. Um, so basically, birthdays originally were used in primarily ancient culture as a means of protection. So basically, back in ancient times when we still had polytheistic traditions of believing in more than one god, they felt that there would be evil spirits that would try to sabotage people on important dates that person had, or were sort of a part of, making that person lucky, I guess you could say. Birthdays are sort of like sort of a, I guess you could say in some cultures, sort of a luck symbol. It's like, hey, you survived another year. And so back in the olden days, they thought that evil spirits would try to sabotage this. So what they would do is they basically would use the birthday as a means to ward off the evil spirits. And in doing this, they would give gifts as a means of good wishes, and sort of celebrate it in that way so that all of the evil spirits would sort of go away. It is kind of strange how that was really initially how it sort of got started off, but that's kind of the way in which people saw birthdays back then. But also, the candles on a birthday do have a lot more significance than maybe one would realize, because back in the ancient times of gods, candles were seen as giving a signal to the gods, because most of the time in ancient cultures they believed the gods would come from the sky, and so they would have candles, and the blowing out the candles was a signal of sending sort of your message to the gods, or sending your wish. And so that's kind of how we kind of get the wish thing established within a birthday, because when you're given a cake with candles on it, they say make a wish, and that's sort of where the whole idea and concept of candles came from. It was this idea that you were sending a message to the gods originally. But back in ancient times, it was only done. Birthdays were only done for like really high status people with a lot of wealth and high rank. The average person wouldn't necessarily have a birthday because they weren't of as much importance as somebody who was of royal blood, or of a significant amount of wealth. So, and again, the birthday was designed to be like a really festive thing, feasts and things like that too. So again, it would make sense that only wealthy people around that time would be able to have those kinds of celebrations. So that's basically really where birthdays kind of originated. But then the Germans eventually started the tradition of giving children birthdays, and this was called Kinderfeste. So, in other words, children's festivals, as this would probably be translated as. And that's really the primary history when it comes to birthdays. And again, various cultures have done various traditions. I mean, I'm sure there's even some countries and some areas where they don't even really acknowledge the birthday. Um, but I think it is highly emphasized, especially within Western culture, um, just because it's just one of those days where, you get to celebrate being still alive um, and living through another year. Um, as far as birthdays isn't concerned, is in regards to my views and from my experiences, I mean, when I was a child, birthdays were all the rage, just to invite a bunch of people over that you knew and just have a party and basically play and eat cake. And, it was this big, you know, crazy thing. Um, but as I got older, birthdays, they don't really have as much, I think, significance to me as they did when I was younger. Only because I'm just not one of those people who, um, I guess you could say, was embrace the holiday with the same amount of, I guess, enthusiasm than I did in the past. Only because, birthday, it's such a repetitious sort of holiday in that it's celebrating you being born. Um, but at the same time, as I get older, I just appreciate more the simple things. I'm more of have peace and quiet, have some people over, or just do something with the family. So I've never been one that's had um, as much lavish parties compared to in my youth. So I think it's just one of those holidays that, as over time, it just kind of becomes a little bit more insignificant. Only just because, as you get older, it's you just treat it like another day, as opposed to, when you're young, you treat it as something very important and something fun. Um, so I think that's really how just I think that's just naturally just the part of, I guess, growing up, at least for me. Um, but they are a lot of fun. I mean, I always have cake, I always have presents and things like that. I, but when it comes to uh, comparing my youth to my adulthood, I'd say birthdays hold a little bit less of a emphasis than they did within the past. Only because I think, when you're little, it's sort of it's one of those things where you don't experience it all too often initially, but once you get older and you've had so and so many birthdays after a while, you're just kind of like, okay, all right, just another day, yay. But I think it's good to note the sort of significance that it has on an individual because it's just it goes to show because it's like a celebration of life. It's you're taking in the idea that you made it through another year and that you are on this planet still and still have maybe more years to go. So it's just one of those holidays that is one that you can, I think, find some appreciation for it. Um, it's just the whole emphasis and planning and all that stuff. Usually that goes down with an age, unless you reach a point where you're fairly old and you've lived longer than maybe some people have, then you maybe kind of celebrate it. Maybe once you start getting into your 70s or your 80s, you throw maybe a bigger bash. But at the same time, for the most part, usually birthdays, at least from my experience as you get older, are just kind of, they're fun, but yet they're simple, and they're not as rambunctious or crazy as they were when you were a kid. So, uh, and I think that's just a part of, growing up and experiencing life. And birthdays really do, I think, emphasize the point of, growing up and, realizing uh, the things that kind of have happened in your life, and just kind of taking everything in and sort of realizing that it's another year for me. Um, but but again, I think sometimes birthdays can definitely go um, completely overboard and really ridiculous. I mean, especially if you've ever seen Sweet 16 on MTV. It's just ridiculous. I mean, some people I think take their birthdays way too far and kind of over spoil themselves. Whereas with me, I've never tried to be like very spoiled and uptight on my birthday. I'm always happy to get whatever I get on my birthday. So but I mean, I'm sure people treat birthdays all in different ways, and some people really like to emphasize them maybe more so than me. But I'm just one of those people where I've grown up to realize the simple is nice. It was nice to have big little parties back when I was little, but now that I'm older, I think it's just nicer just to have a couple of people over, or um, just go out with the family for dinner or something like that, and that just be my birthday, and then just get presents and stuff, and that be it. But yeah, I think that's really ultimately all I can say about this topic. I think birthdays are really interesting. I mean, I don't think a lot of people talk about birthdays and what they sort of mean to people, but they obviously have had some, significant history behind them, and I think there's certain reasonings as to why, you know, we do sort of the traditions that we do, and basically birthdays are sort of one of those holidays that has come and will continue to be here probably as long as people start living. We'll have birthdays. But yeah, I think that's really ultimately all I can say when it comes to this topic. But again, if there are any questions, comments, concerns, I'd be more than happy to answer them. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you all have a pleasant day, week, month, and year. And if it's your birthday today, happy birthday to you. Um, and if it's not your birthday, happy unbirthday to you. And I'd love to hear what anybody else has to say when it comes to birthdays and how they've celebrated them over the years. It's just a fun holiday, and it's cool to have a little discussion now about it, and it's nice to see the sort of history behind it, I think. But until next time, everybody.